This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you. Welcome to this installment of BSO Backstage, a concert preview. I'm your host, Desiree Duncan, and I'm joined with Music Director Dan Allcott and Executive Director Susan Luna. Welcome.
Great to be back at Poets, talking about music.
Talking about music on this fine spring day. It's finally spring. All the ice and snow is gone. It was fun while it lasted. I saw a lot of sledding, but glad that it's back to a normal temperature. I
hate to be selfish, but we were so lucky in that, regardless of the weather, we escaped any collisions with any of our events during February. We got in and out right before the second ice storm, or maybe the first one. So I'm glad everybody was able to attend the concerts and then get home safely, and our musicians in and out of town. That's always a worry because we have people coming in to play the concert from all over Tennessee and even Kentucky. Yeah, we dodged a bullet with that one, and hopefully all of our audience members were safe too.
Yeah, I know with schools both at Tech and the public schools being out for, up to 10 days? I think Tech was out for a full week.
You lost your power. You live across the street from me. I saw that big tree.
Yeah, it was just down. Me that lost power. Everyone else was having fun, being on the internet.
I lost my phone.
Warm.
No, we lost our phone and internet.
Did you?
Yeah, we had one branch, and there was our line to our house, and so that was not bad. We had heat. We had everything we needed, but because it was such a low priority, because it was not a telephone pole that came down, we said, you can wait a week. So that was fun. In my house to have your kids home, and I said, they have these things called board games.
Yeah.
And even DVDs.
And we can talk to each other.
Right, yeah.
But a big thanks to the emergency response folks in the county they got the power. I know people were out for quite a while in Monterey, but they did in a fantastic amount of time. They got everyone's power back up. I know since mine was just one house, it took a minute, but it was maybe 28 hours that it was out.
Well, I'm just glad your house was safe, because that was the first thing I did when I walked out and I saw that tree. I started being the nosy neighbor. I'm like walking back there, and then I think I sent you an email.
Like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm just a little shaken up.
No lights on at your house.
So speaking of which, there was no interruption in your concert. Tell us about the last concert.
Well, it was a really fun concert. The February concert, once a year we feature the winner of the Joan Derryberry Memorial Concerto competition. And this year the winner was Jordan Frazier, and she's a young flute player. She's a junior performance major. And she did such a great job. And I think that's there's always a neat energy in that concert, because I think when you bring in a soloist, there's an excitement from the audience when you bring someone in from outside, but there's also the expectation level of them being just awesome. And so when you have a young soloist from Tech, I think the audience is kind of really rooting for them. So there's a certain energy there, and even the orchestra that way in rehearsal that morning. And we put things together rather quickly, and so Jordan came off stage after the rehearsal, which was really the first time the whole orchestra had seen this piece, and it was a modern piece written in the 90s. By Lowell Lieberman, not super modern sounding, but difficult to read, and not something that the orchestra is familiar with necessarily. And so, there were some rocky places in rehearsal, and so Jordan, right before she went on stage, and I know Jordan very well, and before we went on stage that afternoon, she said, "Is this going to go okay?" And I said, "I got your back," And we came off stage, and she couldn't believe it. She was, "I can't believe how well it went." And I said, "You underestimate our orchestra's powers." But it does take us a while to kind of put it together on that day. So that was really exciting to have her. And then the audience, we all sang happy birthday to her, because that night at midnight she was having a birthday. So it was a really special day for Jordan. And I think that that's one of those times where there's a lot of energy washing back and forth across the stage to the audience, because again, there's such a strong relationship between the Bryan Symphony Orchestra Association, Tech, and our audience. So that's a fun thing. We also performed a piece written by a former teacher of mine, Don Freund. It was a very interesting piece for 16 instruments. It was basically based on a blues riff. And so, for me, it's always interesting to talk to our audience about the 350 years worth of music that I choose from when I program a concert. So that was an interesting concert where we started with 2 works by American composers on the opening half of the program, and then we ended with what is kind of a perennial audience favorite, which is Beethoven's Pastoral Symphony. And it's a funny thing about the Beethoven is that it's audiences, it's one of, when I talk to people about Beethoven symphonies, people who are lay people and not musicians say, oh, I love Beethoven 6. And I think, and as a musician, it's the least approachable for me in a certain way because it's the least Beethoven-like in a certain sense. So it was great that we got to do that, and the audience really enjoyed that. And it's always good for me to revisit that piece. I've done it 2 or 3 times. And so Beethoven's always a favorite. I mean, Beethoven's the one that kind of put the rock and roll in classical music. So it's always fun for our orchestra to dig in and play something like that they're familiar with.
And I know with being a concerto winner, the Desiree concerto winner, what else is to be expected? Like, have you had a chance to talk to Jordan about her experience since it was a couple weeks ago?
Yes, I have. I mean, we talked a lot about it afterwards, and you know, it's such a growth experience for her. And I think it's for those, especially since she's a junior. Junior year for a music major at Tech is a really important year, especially for a performance major, because usually performance majors are looking at going to a master's, into a master's program somewhere. And I think the bounce that Jordan, first of all, it was a really busy week for Jordan. She had her junior recital the week before, totally different program. Had a band concert Friday night, where she played, I think, first flute in that, you know, led the section in that. Big festival of winds and percussion, all this stuff going. And then she played the concerto with us on Sunday. I think she just got a huge bounce in her confidence, and also in her checkbook, because she gets a scholarship award from the Desiree Fund at school, and then we have a private donor from the Bryan Symphony who always doubles that award. And I think that allowed her, she's taking her spring break to go and visit some schools, potential graduate schools. So I think emotionally and her playing, and also a little help financially, has given her the confidence to kind of strive for that next level. And I think that's the best thing about the Desiree competition, is that it, you know, everybody in the department comes together. You've got all these students performing. They're all striving for that next level. And so that is a great way to kind of give somebody a good pat on the back, and also to help them look forward to their future, whether they be a music education major or performance major in this case. So I know Jordan was down in Denton, Texas, visiting University of North Texas, which is a great music school, and then looking at some other places. And junior year is the time you have to do that, because senior year is all about doing auditions at those places. So I always tell, especially if there's a chance for a student to go to a summer festival where they might meet other teachers and potential teachers for graduate school, junior year is the time you want to do it. So I think we've pushed her on that path a little bit, and that's a great thing. And I really appreciate the association and the university coming together on a concert like that to make that happen.
Well, it is great that there is that synergy and that these students have that opportunity every year. I don't know how many other, I know, Susan, you've worked at another orchestra in South Carolina. Do students or anyone that's not a already professional artist, do they have those opportunities with other orchestras?
Not anything like they do here. There's not really the cooperation, the collaboration with local universities, which is unfortunate that there's not the ability to work together and give students the opportunity to perform with a professional orchestra. So that's one great thing about the orchestra here. The
interesting thing about this competition too is it's because it's just for Tennessee Tech students. There are other orchestras who will have a wider pool, and they'll have a young artist competition. Usually that person doesn't perform on a subscription concert. Even my orchestra in Oak Ridge, we collaborate with another organization that has a young artist competition. And one of the bonuses in that situation is if I find that somebody has stuck out and I deem them worthy to perform with the orchestra, we do it. But it's usually on a family concert, which that serves another purpose, because if we have 500 young kids at a family concert and they see one of their peers performing, that's a great inspiration. So that's an interesting thing. And we've done that here actually on one of our education concerts. I once had a 12-year-old cellist that I'd just judged in a competition 2 weeks before that. And I thought, I'm sliding this into this concert right now because I want all these kids to see one of their peers performing. But in this case, it really washes back and forth both ways. It's such a benefit for Tennessee Tech and for our student population. You know, there could have been other ways to do it, but that's the way it was envisioned. We could have just had it as an open high school competition for the state, you know, and then we would have had a winner, but it wouldn't have been somebody who was already invested in the university. And I think we have several scholarship opportunities that are very faithful to Tennessee Tech. The Captain Anderson Award that we give out, which is a huge scholarship fund, one of the biggest donations to the university ever. We hold a part of that fund, and it rewards students who perform in the Bryan Symphony in their junior and senior years. So again, that money could have been used to try and get attention elsewhere, but instead we're using that money to reward the students who have achieved and who are faithful to Tech and the Bryan Symphony. So that's a really nice thing, very unique for us.
And just like you were saying about having the young 12-year-old cellist play, that is, you never know how moving that is for a young person to be able to see themselves or a version of themselves up there, and that lets them know, hey, that is something that I can do. And that translates in all aspects of life for young people, whether it's, hey, there's this person, going to college, studying this, or you just need that adult person in there to make the world a little more open to them.
It's about opportunities, and I think in education, the wider spectrum of opportunities and exposure that people have. If we're too focused on career choices or life paths, you say, here, there's one way to do this. If that's not your way, then you feel excluded. And I think that was, even when I was a kid, that was the case. I think we had a string quartet that came to my school one time, and I was already playing the cello at that point. But, that was, for me, that affirmed what I was doing. And my friends, we all sat down in the I think we were on the floor of the gym at Thomas Jefferson Elementary School in Moline, Illinois. We're all sitting there, and this string quartet came up, and they moved right up into the kids, and they were really friendly. And my friend said, "Hey, isn't that the instrument that you play?" And I thought, "Yeah, it is." And so that was affirming for me in that situation. Because I was, the only one playing the cello at my school. It was a very small school. And so that we always talk about that when we have the education concerts. I always tell the kids, we ask them who plays instruments, and I tell them, what I would like most is for you to be on the stage with us in a few years, performing with the Bryan Symphony Orchestra. So, and that's fun for me too, sometimes shortly after, usually right after the education concert, because I'm out I'm at Kroger and, doing stuff or whatever. Usually there'll be some little kid who recognizes me. And sometimes they're brave enough to address me, or they'll tell their parent, that's the conductor. And the parents will say, oh, my son or daughter saw you at the education concert. And that's really fun for me to talk to them about, what they enjoyed about the concert. And we also get a lot of notes back from kids. The teachers are nice enough to deliver the notes to us, and we try and divvy them up into the department. Like if a kid says, my favorite instrument was the trombone, I give that to Josh Hauser, and we put it in his mailbox. And then I see them on the bulletin boards of the faculty members, and it's really fun to see some of the comments that the young kids make. And their observations are unique and real and informative to me, so that's really fun.
Yeah, and that's also something that has been important to me. Like, even seeing Susan up there as the executive director of the symphony, it's inspiring to probably more young folks in this community to see, like, okay, this is something that I can do, I can achieve. It's not just you have to, I don't know, I don't want to say like pay your dues, but there is an opportunity she has paid her dues. But just something for folks that are getting ready, role models, kids that are getting ready to graduate from Tech, seeing like, okay, like, that could be me.
Well, in this case too, in our office, we've started a music business program at Tech, and some of the kids who are going into that, then they can intern in the office, or right now we have a recent graduate, Rachel Salter, who's working with Susan, and learning from Susan's experience. Susan went away and came back, and Rachel has actually had an internship at the Sewanee Summer Music Festival. So it all feeds, the same way. In fact, on this upcoming concert, well, last year that was the case with Claire Chase, who was a MacArthur Genius Grant winning flute player. I brought her in as a soloist because I wanted to show, first of all, she's this very diminutive figure. I mean, she's really small. It looks like she plays a larger flute than normal because she's so small, but she won this Genius Grant. And I wanted our young ladies at Tech to see this super strong figure. And in fact, it happened to be that Jordan Fraser, who was the winner this year, was sitting backstage, and she was going to watch on the little monitor backstage. And I said, Jordan, get out in the audience and watch. This is why I brought her here, for people like you to have a role model. It seemed to have worked since Jordan won the competition this year. Next concert that we're doing here in March, we're playing a Brandenburg concerto that we're going to talk about a little bit more. But one of the requirements is that it has 3 oboes, and And so I'm actually bringing an oboe player who's a young woman that I know from the Knoxville area, and she's going to play with our professor and one of his students. Again, because, I mean, first of all, I needed somebody who's playing at that super high level, but also as a good, role model for especially the young women in our school to see these really strong players out there. And yeah, they can do it. And it's necessary that everybody sees people who have acted on opportunity.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a little bit of a break here, and we'll be back with more BSO Backstage, a concert preview. All right, so we've got the upcoming concert. Excited to hear about what's going on, but let's start. Who makes this concert possible?
The sponsors for the March concert are Julia and Bob Lowe and Regions Bank, and both the Lowes and Regions have been longtime sponsors of the BSO, so we're grateful that they are still supporting us, especially the Lowes, because they don't even live here anymore, and they still support and come to concerts and come to other events. So we're very grateful for that. We're also thankful for the Tennessee Tech Center Stage series, as they are helping support the Cypress String Quartet for this concert.
Yeah, it's really neat. Center Stage is a visiting artist and also cultural series at Tech, so it can be authors, musicians, artists, and they provide for residencies on campus and special lectures. And in this case, the Center Stage series, I frequently will try and bring in a string quartet during the year so they can coach our students, play a string quartet concert. And so several years ago, I brought the Cypress String Quartet just for an evening string quartet concert. And so I applied for a grant this year because when they were here, they talked to me about this concerto that had been written for them, which is very unusual. You don't usually have a concerto for string quartet and orchestra. And they said they had just premiered it, and they sent me a CD of the performance. And I thought, this is a great piece, and that would be like a super cool thing to do. So I kind of kept that in the back of my mind. And I wrote the grant for them to come as a Center Stage artist this year. So their residency involves that they will be on Thursday morning, the 19th, doing 11 o'clock in the morning rehearsal with some of our students. That was the other fun thing, is when I talked to the first violinist in the group, Cecily Ward, she said, well, sometimes when we do a residency, we play with some of the kids or some of the alums or whatever. So we're opening that concert, their Thursday night concert, with a piece for string players from Tech, some of our alums and a couple of our students. It's a Mozart piece where the string quartet is soloist, and then we kind of accompany them. And then do a full string quartet, chamber recital, which is so exciting. They're just really a great group. They've been written up in Strad magazine and Gramophone for their Beethoven recordings. Really exciting group out of San Francisco. And then they're going to teach some lessons on Friday morning to some of our alums and students. Then they're actually leaving town, going over to Oak Ridge and playing a string quartet concert on Saturday night. Then they're coming back as featured soloists for this piece it's actually called Paso del Fuego, but it translates as the Passage of Fire. And it's a multi-movement work featuring the string quartet with a string orchestra backing it up. And I think it's going to be a super unique work. I had a really good time talking to the composer, Pablo Furman. He teaches at San Jose State. And he and I were talking about this piece a little bit and how it came to be. And we have really nice, very descriptive program notes and things that he collaborated with somebody during the premiere. So just an exciting opportunity here of something totally different. And this concert really features the sound of string instruments anyway. And to open the concert, we're doing actually 2 of the Brandenburg concertos by Bach, which are really, they kind of set the standard for early orchestral music. That's a neat thing that, during the year, you can see different size orchestras, different groups playing. We have that freedom to do that because in a larger city, a lot of times the music gets segregated into early music groups and modern orchestras and then choral groups. Here, we have to do it all, kind of, or we get to do it all. So I guess I'm lucky. I get to do it all is the way I like to think of it. So the first piece on the program is Bach's Brandenburg Concerto No. 1, and that's written for strings, 3 oboes, 2 horns, and bassoon. And that's the largest that the group will be on the stage that day. The second Brandenburg Concerto is written just for strings, And it's funny because I hadn't originally put that on the program, and because Mr. Furman had not told me how long the piece was, so I programmed this piece and the other Brandenburg Concerto, and then finally, this was last summer, we were emailing each other back and forth trying to catch each other. And so I thought, oh, well, I've got time for another Brandenburg Concerto, but that time I had already committed in budget to only 2 cello players for the first Brandenburg Concerto. Well, the third Brandenburg Concerto requires 3 different cello parts. So I thought, what am I going to do? Where can I find another cello player to just play that one piece? That's all I need. So I'm actually playing the cello on that one. So I'll sit, and I've actually done this before, so I'll sit facing the orchestra and the 2 cellos. And we also arranged the orchestra differently for this concert, for a concert of just strings. So it'll be first violins, second violins, and the cellos in the middle. And I'll actually face them and kind of lead and play with them. It's a piece of chamber music anyway, but that's kind of fun to do. Then after that, after the oboes have had a chance to rest, because they play a lot of notes on the first piece, so then they can let the blood rush back to their lips, and then they'll come out, Bill Woodworth and Aicha Yeaman, who's the guest I talked about earlier. She'll come, and they'll play a great fanfare by George Friedrich Handel. Handel was a contemporary of Bach's, and they're really, it's fun to kind of compare them. Bach lived in North Germany, he's Lutheran, very pious, and wrote a lot of church music, and kind of his job path was to, work for a duke or a church or be what they would call, basically he was a music director of an area. And so if you were the musician in town, you probably played organ at the church, and you, any instrumental music that was being written, you basically had to do everything. And he was writing a cantata, a church piece one a month all the time, just, had to do a new one for whatever season was happening. Super busy in that way. Handel actually left Germany and went to London. They were contemporaries. They were both born in 1685. Bach died in 1750, Handel in 1759. They were both blinded by the same eye surgeon. Very interesting thing to look up. Yeah, it's like, don't go there. Anyway, so but Handel was very popular in his time, much more popular than Bach. Bach was seen as old-fashioned, and other contemporaries were more popular, and he kind of toiled away. Bach also had a little bit of a temper. He'd get fired every once in a while. He was kind of a hothead. He took a sabbatical once without asking from one of his ducal appointments, and so when he came back, they put him in jail for a month. And then he got a new job. And in fact, the Brandenburg Concertos were written as a possible job application. Basically, he sent this package of music, 6 concertos he'd written for instrumental ensembles of different sizes. He was really exploring the different sounds. One for just strings, one with 3 oboes and 2 horns, another with viola da gamba, all these different combinations. He sent them to the Margrave of Brandenburg, who was under the jurisdiction of Frederick the Great, and didn't have enough money for all the instruments, possibly for these combination of instruments in the concerto. So they just sat, wrapped up, and never played. In Bach's lifetime, never played. Bach died in 1750. They weren't published until 1850. And at that time, there was a big revival of Bach's music, mostly led by Felix Mendelssohn and some other composers. And then they started to get, played. And now we think these are the greatest works of the Baroque era. The piece that we're playing is called The Entrance of the Queen of Sheba, from Soloman, and it's for 2 oboes and orchestras. And the interesting thing is it's basically a fanfare. And so for fanfares, we usually consider, what's the best instrument for a fanfare? Usually it's trumpets, but in this case it's 2 oboes, 2 solo oboes. So we get to see what they get to do in that case. So a really exciting concert of very different music and also just different sounds. If you think about the first piece with 3 oboes, 2 horns, and a small string section, there's 1 bass and 2 cellos and 6 violins in each section. It's a really small group. Then just strings, then the strings and oboe, and then to end the concert, we have this great new piece for string quartet and string orchestra.
Yeah, sounds like a very exciting lineup. Something else that's been exciting, I know that there has been a different after-concert dinner location. Tell us a little bit about that, Susan.
Yes, we are trying to go to different local businesses around town, spread the business around a little bit. So this month, we're going to be having our dinner at Seven Senses. And it will be a completely different menu, not Seven Senses regular menu, specifically formulated for the BSO. Chef Chad Combs is cooking all of it, and so it will be delicious. The menu is in our newsletter, And I will also be posting it on Facebook, but you can call us at 526-2633 to RSVP. You do have to RSVP because I have to give a number so that he knows how many to cook, since we're the only ones that are going to be there.
I haven't called yet, but I'm going to be there.
Okay.
Okay, good.
All right. I gotcha.
And then also there's the luncheon that happens in Crossville right before the concert, right?
Yes, on Wednesday the 18th, Dan and I will be going to Crossville for the preview luncheon. It's at the Palace Theater, and it is $10, and you get lunch, and you get to listen to Dan talk a whole lot about the concert.
My favorite.
And it is always very interesting. I always learn something. Which I always learn something in these.
That's
too,
a great group of people in Crossville.
Really
we have
is.
and it was so nice last time we did it. We had some board members come over, and because we're always telling them this is a great group of people over there, and so that was really fun to do that. And then we'll have the pre-concert lecture also before. So there's all kinds of opportunities to learn about this music. I've only just, in this short time, I only can touch the tip of the iceberg about how excited I am about the music. So
I know that there's a cavern worth of information about this, but hopefully that information will get out to attendees.
And great program notes. Come to the concert. The lights are up well enough you can read that, or get there early and read the program notes.
Susan, tell us when the concert is and how we can get tickets.
All right, the concert is Sunday, March 22nd at 3 p.m., and you can get tickets by calling me at the BSOA office at 525-2633.
All right, looking forward to the next concert. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Susan, for joining us, and we'll see you next time on BSO Backstage, a concert preview. This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.